Hi, welcome to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela. All the places you can find me online should be linked below. I'm most active over on Instagram, where you'll find me as both Rainbow Ange and Yarn and Yarns. As usual here on the channel, you'll find me chatting about my adventures in knitting and crochet and spinning. So a very big warm welcome to everyone this week. YouTube has informed me that we've had a couple of new subscribers this week, so a very big welcome to anyone who is new. And as always, whether you are old or new, that doesn't entirely make sense, does it? But you know what I mean. And you want to have a chat, then please do by all means leave a comment in the comment section down below. I do love to chat, and if you are new, then yeah, let me know who you are and what you're working on and all that good stuff. Yeah, it's always fun to meet new craft friends. It's fairly early on Monday morning here. I've already been up and about. I had to go to the dentist this morning just for a checkup, and he did a little bit of a light clean as well. So my mouth's feeling a bit weird. Always does, doesn't it, when you have all those strange tools and things being shoved in there. It's like going to some torture chamber, isn't it, the dentist? Well, at least that's how I feel about it. Anyway, that's over and done with for another 6 months, fingers crossed. So I can get on with my day now. So obviously I am here chatting to you to start with, and then I am hoping to hop on the train into Cardiff. At the moment it's quite a nice bright sunny day, but the forecast says it might cloud over a little bit later. I am hoping to catch a movie, as I often do on a Monday, and also I've got a few errands to run in Cardiff. So yeah, that's my day. What have you been up to today, whichever day that is? I appreciate that you may not be watching this on Monday, when I will hopefully be uploading this, but yeah, let me know what you've been up to. Anyway, I do have knitting, crochet and spinning to share with you today, so let's crack on and get to the good stuff. I'm going to start with spinning today because I have an exciting new spinning venture. I started recording this segment a few days ago, so I'm going to pop in a little bit of footage of that now. My spinning section is something a little bit different this week. I want to introduce you to a very good new friend of mine. Her name is Edith, and here she is. So I'll give you a proper tour of Edith in a little while. For now, I'm going to move you a little bit closer. So anyone who has followed for a long time will know that well over a year ago now, 2 vintage spinning wheels came into my life, and up until this point I'd not managed to get either of them working. I've been toying with the idea of purchasing a wheel for the last few months, and I've got a little savings pot put aside, and I keep saving money, and then other bills and things come up that kept eating into that pot. I'm almost back to the point now where I could buy myself a nice basic wheel, but I thought before I did that I'd have one last ditch attempt at getting my wheels that I had to work. So I have an Ashford traditional which was given to me, but I haven't yet managed to get that one up. I think I'm going to need to get some new parts. I think she still might be rescuable. But this one that I've showed you, Edith, as I have named her, I purchased this one from a local lady, and I just wasn't brave enough, I guess, is probably the real answer, to get her going. It took a little bit of research on my part. She is a Haldane or a Halden, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, spinning wheel, and she is the Shetland model. They don't make these wheels anymore, the company doesn't exist. And she's a double drive band, and really all that was required was the band replacing on her to get her going, and a little bit of TLC. So I've started spinning on my wheel. I had a play around on Sunday to try and get her going, and I managed to get her spinning a little bit, but it wasn't very consistent. She span for a while, and then I got to the point where the fibre was spinning, but it wasn't winding itself onto the bobbin. And anyway, long story short, it turned out I needed to mess around with the tension a little bit. So this is my first bobbin of hand spun yarn. It's very, very inconsistent. If I hold it up here, you can see there's a few pigtails there where I had that issue, as I said, where there was twist going into the fibre, but I couldn't get the fibre to wind onto the bobbin. There's some really loose, kind of almost unplied bits towards the end here. There's some really thin bits and some thick bits. But overall, although it was quite frustrating, it was quite exciting that I was actually spinning on a wheel. So anyway, me and Edith had words on the Sunday, and I gave up on her a little bit. But as I was sat on Sunday afternoon knitting, I figured out how to adjust the tension on her slightly. And so on Monday morning, I grabbed the rest of the red fibre and spun up this second bobbin. And this one is much more consistent than the first one. There are still obviously some inconsistencies. I'm still getting used to the wheel, but I don't know if you can see that. I think that's a fairly good attempt for my first kind of play on the wheel. So of course I want to keep practicing. I'm a little bit addicted now. I have hit another snag in the road though. Well, two snags really. The first, I only have 3 bobbins that fit this, and as I said, they don't produce this wheel anymore, so I'll need to have a hunt around and see if I can find anyone that is making sort of reproduction bobbins for the Haldane. And the second, so I've actually filled up my bobbins now. I've got one on the wheel, which I'll show you in a bit, because I want to keep practicing. The second issue that I've had is, although I can get her consistently spinning fibre, I haven't yet managed to get her to take the fibre onto the bobbin when I'm spinning in the opposite direction, which I'll need to do for plying. So I think, again, it's probably just a tension issue and I need to have a play around with that. But because I filled up my 3 bobbins, I don't have any spare bobbins to play with plying. She's got a built-in Lazy Kate, so what I'm going to do is wind off these 2 red fibres and use these. These are just a merino top. I purchased a few bags at Wonderwall from Woolly Knit. They just had some mill ends and it was like 3 bags or 4 bags for £10 or something like that. So I got a ton of fibre to play with. So I've been using that. This yarn is not going to be anything at all special. As I say, there's tons of really thick and thin bits, although this one is more consistent. But I'm going to use these to practice plying with, as I say. So I'm just going to wind these off onto, I'm actually going to use some empty cardboard tubes, and then they'll slot into the pins on my built-in Lazy Kate, and I'll have a spare bobbin, well, I have to play with for plying. I won't have 2 for very long though, because as I say, I've started a new spinning project. I'm spinning up some Rolags. Here are the Rolags that I'm playing with. They're this really fun kind of aqua blue with some pinks and some yellows thrown in for good measure, and plenty of sparkle too. I think you can probably just about see that sparkle. I've almost spun the first half of these Rolags. There was 8 Rolags altogether. I didn't weigh them. I just split them 4 and 4, and I've wound almost the first 4 onto the other bobbin that I have. So once I have wound these off, I'm going to spin up these other 4 onto the next bobbin, and then hopefully by then I will have figured out how to tension Edith so that she spins in the other direction and I'll be able to ply them up, but we shall see. I would have done a bit more playing, but I just wanted to show you my first wheel spun bobbins before I wound them off. There's obviously more fibre on this one than this one, but I think that's partly down to the thick and thin nature. I'm not sure that there's more in weight, but this one is definitely more consistent than this one. So yeah, I am now, as well as a drop spindler, a wheel spinner too. I think that's pretty exciting. Okay, so as promised, here is the full tour of Edith. As you can see, she's an upright wheel, single treadle, and she has a double drive band. If I just flip her around a minute, that means the drive band goes over 2 parts of the wheel. I'm afraid my wheel terminology is not very good, so I can't talk you through all of the parts, I'm afraid. But this is the part here which allows me to tension the wheel. This bit here screws up and down and moves this arm here, and obviously the higher it goes, the more tension is put on the drive band. The lower it goes, the less tension is put on that drive band. This is my attempt so far at spinning those Rolags, so I'm fairly pleased with that. There's definitely some slubby bits in there because at points the fibre is felted a bit, but I'm pretty pleased with the consistency. So you feed the fibre through the orifice here, and that's where you feed it onto the bobbin as you spin. Just going to flip her background. Excuse the messy living room in the background. So this is I'm going to move that Rolag up out the way if I can. There we go. So this is the built-in Lazy Kate that I was talking about. There's a couple of pins here that slide in and out, and you just pop your bobbin. You just pop your bobbins onto those and slide them across. I can't do it one-handed, and they slot into a hole on this side of the sort of shaft of the wheel there, and there they are, just hanging out there. My little orifice hook here, I think must be the original hook because it's moulded beautifully and the same as the wheel, and as you can see it looks well loved. It's pretty bent, but it does the job. There are a couple of really fun things that I love about this wheel. The first is there's a little message on the wheel down here, and it says supplied by, and then gives the name and address of a couple. So I'm assuming this was either donated to a guild or a group, or maybe in some sort of showroom or something. And then on one of the bobbins there's this really little cute message inside. I don't know if my phone will focus. There we go. Oil the flyer shaft, pedal pins and wheel axle. It says a little bit further down, it's covered up by the fibre there. So that's a little label that someone's obviously printed out and stuck on the bobbin, which is quite fun. So yeah, there she is in all of her glory. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that whistle stop tour of Edith. I'm sorry, the light's probably not the best in here because I was filming into the window, but hopefully you get a good idea, and maybe I'll try and get a few more shots of her in a little bit of a better position. But it's just easy for me to sit here on the floor in the living room while I'm talking into the camera to show you what's what. I am sure I will talk more about my spinning adventures in videos to come. I have a wheel which is really exciting, and I have a plied skein from that red yarn that I showed you, and it's really ropey but here it is, my first completely spun on the wheel yarn, which for me is really exciting, but the quality of this yarn is rubbish, and and I'm not just saying that to, you know, be modest or downplay myself. Just look at that, it is rubbish. But I am going to keep this for posterity. I probably won't ever knit with this. There are huge tension issues because I did decide to just ply up that first bobbin where I was having problems with the uptake onto the wheel. So yeah, some of this yarn is really ropey, some of it's really underspun, but I think it will be a good sort of memento of my first attempt at spinning on the wheel. So yeah, I'm excited for the possibilities of that. I also plied up the Rolags, so I finished spinning those. I managed to find an Etsy seller who was making bobbins for my wheel. Now these bobbins are slightly shorter than the ones I've got, so this was a 4-inch bobbin, and I didn't actually measure the bobbins that came with my wheel, but I reckon they must be 5 inches. But it fit on the wheel fine and it span fine, so I now have an additional couple of bobbins which is really nice. And if I remember, I'll link to the Etsy shop below, and they're actually based here in Wales too, which was also very fun. So hopefully I'll remember to do that. There was a couple of people I mentioned last week that I forgot to link last week, so I apologise for that. But hopefully I can be a bit more organised and with it this week. So this is the plied yarn from the Rolags. I did a 2-ply. I just split the Rolags in half. I didn't weigh them. I just had 8 Rolags and I spun 4 onto one bobbin and 4 onto another. And this is the yarn that I've made. This yarn, again, it's not perfect. If I unwind it, so you can see there are some slubby bits, some thick and thin bits as I unroll it. These Rolags I found difficult to draft in places. The fibre was really pretty, and I think the yarn is going to be really pretty knit up, but I think some of the fibre was slightly felted, which meant that I was struggling to sort of draft it. And I think particularly as I'm still getting used to my wheel and the action of treadling and drafting, there are some bits that just sort of slipped in that could have been drafted a little bit more. But overall I'm happy with that, so I can wind that off onto the niddy noddy now. There was 50 grams of fibre here, so it's also useful to know that I can fit just about 50 grams onto these new bobbins. As you can see, it's really chock-a-block there. I was struggling to get the last few metres onto that bobbin. But yeah, that's a kind of a good bit of information for me to know. So yeah, and this fibre is really fun. There's kind of some light blues, some pinks and some yellows. I have no idea what I'm going to make with this, but that's one of the reasons that I chose to spin these Rolags. I picked them up on an Etsy sale. The fibre is Corriedale, which was really fun to spin, and I really enjoyed it. I would definitely pick up some Corriedale again, and there are some pieces of Angelina or Firestar in there too. I think it's probably Angelina, to give it a bit of sparkle. Not my usual colour choice, but it's one of the reasons that I picked these to spin up on the wheel, because I do have some nice fibres in my stash. Some of them are really precious though. I don't know if you feel the same way about your either fibre stash or your yarn stash. There are some skeins and things that are just too precious to use almost. Either because, you know, they cost you a lot of money, they are spectacular colours, they were gifts from special friends. So I didn't really have any sentimental or emotional attachment to this particular yarn, so it was a good one to practice with. My next spinning project is already on the wheel, but I'll save that to talk about next week. And for those of you who may be worrying that I have forsaken drop spindling, this is not true. I also have some drop spindled yarn to share with you. So I had started spinning this last week. I think I may have shown it, but if I didn't, I will just recap. This is a bumper fibre that I got from the Spinner's Stash in a little sample pack when I bought a spindle from her at Yarnporium. And again, this was really fun colours, and it had lots of sparkle in it too. So I have spun that up and 2-plied that, and I really love this yarn. So yes, I am still continuing to spindle spin as well. I just have too many things to do now though, because obviously I want to knit and crochet, but I want to now do a little bit of spindle spinning every day and a little bit of wheel spinning every day to keep practicing and develop my skills. So if anyone has the secret to squeezing out an extra few hours in the day, then please let me know below. On to crochet. So crochet again this week is going to be fairly slim. I do have one crochet project that's really near completion, and I've spent quite a lot of time working on it this week, but I don't want to show it here on the video because it is for a lovely friend of mine. Hi Jeanette, if you are watching, I hope you are feeling a bit better. And Jeanette went to Edinburgh Yarn Festival earlier this year, and she put a shout out on Instagram to ask if anyone would crochet up the Dougal, I think he's called Dougal the Ram, which was the Edinburgh Yarn Festival special pattern from Toft. Toft and Kerry Lord are famous for the Ed's Animal series of books. So I agreed to crochet up Dougal. It's taken me much longer than I had wanted to. I find crochet harder on my hands these days, I don't know why. So anyway, I'm very close to finishing Dougal. He's just got a little bit left to do, but I don't want to show him here on the video until he is sent off to Jeanette and been received by Jeanette, because I know she sometimes watches these videos, so I think it'd be nice for her to have a little Dougal surprise before I show it off here on the video. But aside from Dougal, or you can go and look him up on Ravelry to see what he should look like. Dougal, I started a new little project this week. I wanted, similarly to last week, I wanted something that I could work on in the shop when I had my Wednesday crochet group, and one of the ladies in the group has been on at me to make a fun little pattern that we found in the back issue of Crochet Now. So this is the front of the magazine. Crochet Now is probably quite an old one. It just says issue 20, there's no date on it, but it's got a couple of Christmassy projects in and things, so I imagine it's a couple of years old at least. It doesn't have a date on it anywhere. But there's a pattern in here called Herbert the Sheep by Alison Holloway, and it's basically a cover for a tissue box. So there he is, and I've been promising to make this. I do tend to have a box of tissues hanging out at the shop, so I said I would make this for the shop. So this week I started it. I don't have tons of progress, and it's probably not the most exciting for you to see, but there is the top of the tissue box. So lots of bobble stitches basically. Obviously that's where the tissues are going to sort of come through. And I have started the side piece. The side piece is done all in one, so it's just lots and lots of rows of bobbles that sort of get wrapped around the sides of the box. I'm crocheting this from some lovely local yarn that I have, which I stock in the shop. It's from Garlic Meadow Flock. They're a small holding based just a few miles away from here, and they have Dorset Down sheep and alpacas, and they produce yarn from both of those. And this is their label, so pure Dorset Down wool, and this is the Aran weight, and it's spun up by the Natural Fibre Company down in Cornwall. So Natalie, who is one of the owners of Garlic Meadow, sends it all down, gets spun up, and then she sells the yarn. And I have 4-ply DK and Aran. I am eating through this yarn really fast, and I'm going to see, I have run out of Aran in the shop. I had a couple of balls of this in my stash, and then I found one more ball of the Aran in the shop. They are slightly different colours. Sorry, there we go. So the one I'm using is a little bit yellower. I've already used 1.5 for the top of the box, and this is not even one side, so I've got 3 more sides to go. So I'm definitely going to need at least one more ball. I'm not so worried about the colour variation. It's just a fun thing to show off the yarn and have in the shop. So yeah, that's Herbert the Sheep tissue box cover, and that is what he should look like eventually. I'm not in a rush to finish him. I'll probably only work on him on a Wednesday morning when I have my crochet group. So yeah, he'll be a fun little project ongoing for the next couple of weeks. And of course my final section today is knitting. I've got a finished object and a couple of works in progress, and also a bit of a quandary. So I'll start with the quandary. So the quandary is my Hilltop shawl, which I have been knitting from my hand spun yarn. So if you've been following along, you will know that I purchased some Llanwenog fibre, which is a Welsh sheep breed, a couple of years ago at the local fibre festival, Wonderwool. And I took a while to spin through it. I purchased it not long after I started drop spindling, and then I kind of had a little bit of a break from spinning, and then I've got back into it quite seriously this year. So I finished spinning through the fibre that I had and knit it up into this lovely Hilltop shawl, which is designed by Helen Stewart, who is Curious Handmade. However, I have run out of the original batch of fibre that I purchased. This is all I have left of the yarn that I spun up from that. So this year when I went to Wonderwool, I purchased some new Llanwenog from the same producer, but it's not quite as nice in terms of the quality. It's been prepared differently, so this is really nice and buttery soft, and the new batch was carded up into a bat, and it's a little bit stiffer and crunchier. I've washed this twice now, so I washed it once after spinning, and then I knit it up into this little swatch and washed that swatch, and it's definitely softening up. So I'm hopeful that over time with more washing it will get softer and softer, but it's definitely not the immediate buttery softness of this. However, you know, my yarn consistency is about the same, but my biggest issue now, and I don't know because the light is blowing out a little bit, I think you can probably just about see that, is there is a slight difference in colour. So this one is a little bit more yellow, and so I'm in two minds as to what to do now. They're just different enough to have a noticeable difference, if that makes sense. So there'd be a noticeable colour change from this section that I've already knit to here, but they're just close enough that I think the colour change is going to look a bit odd. So I've got a couple of options. Option one is to continue to spin this up and perhaps have a go at naturally dyeing or dyeing in some way the yarn, but I think I'd go with a natural dye attempt. So I would have a definite colour change between these two batches of the Llanwenog. Or my second option is to spin up something entirely different. I would pick another natural shade and then finish the shawl off with, you know, a grey or a brown or something like that. I've got some possible, I'm looking over here because my fibre stash is over there. I've got a couple of possible options that I could use for my fibre stash. There's one. I've got this natural brown in this bag here, which is unknown fibre that I purchased when we went to Gloucestershire earlier on this year. I've also got some grey Corriedale top, which could be a nice option to put on the bottom, and somewhere or other, yeah, I've also got some Cheviot Shetland mix, which is sort of like a natural grey with some white bits in there as well. So I could sample up a few of those and see if I get anything that's a nice texture to go with this beautiful Llanwenog, or as I say, I could just spin up the rest of this and then have a go at dyeing it. So that project is my quandary project this week. If you have any thoughts on what you think would be the best option, then please do let me know below. But I'll probably ruminate, cogitate on that for a couple of weeks, maybe do a little bit of sampling with some of those fibres, and yeah, make a decision. I'm not in any rush to finish that shawl. I can take my time to think about it for a little while, maybe spin up a couple of samples of those other fibres just to see what I think will be the best option. My finished object this week is a little commission that I've been working on for one of my customers in the shop, and it's this cute little baby cardigan. This I knit from West Yorkshire Spinners Bow Peep. I don't have the colourway in front of me, sorry, but I do have a Ravelry project page, so I'll link that below if you are particularly interested. It's a really nice, fun, sort of spring apple green kind of colour. And the pattern is from the UK Hand Knitting Association. It's, I think it was pattern number 92 or something like that if you're in the UK and you want to get hold of it. Again, the details will be in the Ravelry project page if you are super interested. But it was a really plain sort of stockinette on the back, stockinette sleeves, really boxy kind of shape. There was no shaping for the sleeves. It's one of those where you just kind of attach the sleeves at the edges. But there are a couple of details that were really fun to knit. So first off, down the bottom, there were these bobbles, which you knit in the shape of hearts. And then to finish off the cardigan, there was this really fun sort of simple lace border edge, which you knit separately and then sewed on at the end. But it gives quite a cute little finish to that garment, I think. I knit the 6 month to 1 year size, and it took just over 2 balls of the Bow Peep. So yeah, I finished it off with a little smiley face button. There you go. And I don't think there's too much more to say about that. It's a double knit yarn, so it was knit on 3.25 and 4mm needles, which is pretty standard for a double knit. And I hope my customer is happy when she receives that tomorrow. And for my works in progress, I have spent quite a lot of time working on the test knit that I'm participating in for the lovely Lee, who is Lou Lee everywhere on the internet. But I can't show you that project yet, which is a real shame because it's knitting up to to be really cute. I'm really pleased with it. I'm using a bunch of scraps, leftover yarns, mini skeins, and yeah, it's really fun to work on. I've just got the toe left to do on the first sock now, so yeah, I should be able to give some additional feedback to Lee on that pattern this week, and then I just need to crack on and knit that second sock. I'll show you more once the pattern is actually released and I can talk about it a little bit. But alongside that, I cast on a new vanilla sock last week when I headed off to the cinema last Monday. So I picked up the yarn that I pulled out of my box of wrapped up mystery yarns that I've been meaning to work on. So at the beginning of the year I bagged up 12 commercial balls of yarn with the aim of pulling them out one a month and knitting through some of my stash. I have all but my A socks on the needles. A couple of them have been finished. I've got 3 of them on the needles, so it's not going exactly to plan. I haven't been knitting a pair of socks a month as I had thought I might, but that's okay, they will all get done. But I pulled out a ball of West Yorkshire Spinners Owl colourway, so it's a signature 4-ply in the Owl colourway, and this was my June yarn, and I decided to work on a vanilla sock just so I had something to take with me to the cinema. So last week I cast on the cuff before I went to the movies. The cuff, heel and the toes are from a ball of opal unicolor in a really dark brown. So cast on the cuff, and then I knit most of the leg while I was watching my film last week. So this weekend I've just popped in a Fish Lips Kiss heel, so I'm ready to go round and round and round for the foot now when I head off to the movies today. I am definitely going to be knitting a pair of socks from this yarn for me. Because I'm putting in contrast heels, toes and cuffs, I should have enough yarn to get 2 pairs of socks out of one ball. But this first pair is actually going to be for my mother-in-law. This yarn's been around for a while, but the Owl colourway is probably one that I've paid least attention to, because if you followed along, you know that I'm most often attracted to bright colours. So this one hasn't really been on my radar, but I'm really happy with how it's knitting up. There's beige, brown, grey, and then this really nice sort of deep stormy blue. It's showing up more grey than it is in real life. But I thought my mother-in-law might enjoy these because I've knit several pairs of socks for her, and she has commented a couple of times that she gravitates towards some of the more neutral colours because she wears those more, because they go with everything. I think I've spoken about this on the podcast before. I'm not a person that matches my socks with my outfit. The brighter my socks are, the better. So yeah, but obviously that's something important to my mother-in-law. So I thought she might appreciate these socks because they're fairly neutral and think they would go with a lot of things. So this first pair will be for my mother-in-law. These will probably be for her birthday, which is not until October. And earlier on in the year, from my 12 bags of mystery sock yarn, I also knit her a pair of sparkly socks, so they will be for Christmas. So I'm already ahead. Win-win. I'm knitting those on 2.25mm higher sharps, 64 stitches, and I am keeping those in my TARDIS project bag. Yay! The final thing that I have been working on this week is in my orange cat's bag, and it's my Nordiska, which won't be a surprise to anyone who has been following along for a while because I've been pretty obsessed with this project. Nordiska is a cropped sweater pattern by Caitlin Hunter, who is Boylan Knitworks everywhere online, and I have knit the sleeves. Yay! I did manage to get to work on the fun colour work part. So this sleeve has been washed and blocked, and then I've also knit the second sleeve, but I haven't actually blocked that one out yet. So you can see the difference between the fabric before it gets soaked and the yarn gets rested. It's much more sort of crinkly and uneven on this side, but it should block out and look like that once I get to wash it. So I now have the top of the body done and the sleeves. The sleeves are pretty short, they're sort of elbow length sleeves, which means that next time I knit on this, which will not be this week, boo, this week I will be working on some of my older whips, but when I get back to this next week I can start working on the body. I almost picked up the stitches off the waste yarn. this week, but I figured that I wanted to try it on again and just calculate how much extra length. I think I'm going to add a little bit of extra length to this before I start the colour work, so I figured it would be easier to do that while it's still on waste yarn, but I knew if I tried it on and started figuring that out, I would just want to knit away on that this week. Exercising some willpower, and I am completely ignoring that project until next week now. So yeah, this coming week I shall be working on some of my older projects. I am planning on going back to my Derby cardigan. I'm hoping to get the back finished on that. I want to get my test knit finished for Lee. I mean, that's not an older project, but it does have a deadline and I want to do that. I want to finish Dougal because, again, that's not my oldest crochet project, but it has been on the hook for longer than I wanted it to be, and because it is for a friend, I want to get that finished. So they're my main 3 priorities this week, along with, of course, lots of spinning fun. I think that is everything for this week. I thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you get to do some of the things that you enjoy, and until next time, great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now.